Welcome. This is Glasgow Rangers Nation. I'm Owen James, and this is all your latest Rangers news. We're going to talk the official departure of Jefte to Palmeiras. We're going to talk a little bit about what Barry Ferguson has been saying. Some very interesting take on Rangers transfer business. And I've got to say, I'm not going to say I'm going back on what I said. I don't think Ferguson should have been the manager. Definitely not. But I do think that what he said in terms of transfer business makes an awful lot of sense, and we'll talk a little bit of that as well in this video, guys. Remember, if you have just found the channel, it is a free Rangers news channel, guys. Been a Rangers fan for nearly 40 years down here in England, taking the rough with the smooth. There's been a lot of rough, hasn't there, since 2012. Anyway, please obviously like, comment, share, and subscribe. Right, and we have a membership as well here. If you want to be a member, you can become a member for 99p. Bargain. Cheaper than a cup of McDonald's coffee or Costa or Starbucks or Cafe Nero or wherever you like to get your coffee from. Anyway, it was tweeted out yesterday or reported yesterday by Rangers on their official Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. X, Twitter if you're old school, I suppose. X if you're Elon Musk-esque. The Rangers said, we can confirm today the departure of Hefte to Palmeiras for an undisclosed fee. A Heart and Hand reported that as 6.5 million with add-ons, etc., etc. It would reach 6.5 million eventually, not 6.5 million up front, as was reported by some who are clearly not in the know. The 21-year-old who joined the club in May 2024 made 56 appearances for Rangers during his time in Glasgow. Everyone at Rangers thanks Jefte for his contribution while at the club, and we wish him well for his future career. That's what was said on the Rangers official Twitter post. I've got to say, at the end of the day, it's an excellent piece of business. We've condemned, obviously, Dan Purdy and Kevin Thelwell a little bit, and Patrick Stewart for the handling of the summer transfer window so far, the signings and the way it's worked out in terms of some of those signings and how they've kind of not really hit the ground running at all. They've kind of hit the ground and hit a brick wall and fallen flat on their face as a result of it. But this is an excellent piece of business. This is a guy who cost £800,000, and we're now going to eventually make up to 6.5 million for him. This is what the trading model is. This is how the trading model works. This is what is designed. You bring in a young player for a minimal fee, you develop him for a limited period of time, you then sell him on for a big fee. That's what the trading model is. And here with Jefte, we see the trading model demonstrated perfectly. But look, I think it obviously raises an interesting dilemma. Obviously Jayden Meghoma is the left back at this moment in time, and he is on loan obviously for the season, unlikely to sign for Rangers on a permanent basis. Obviously Robbie Fraser also left the club to go to Dunfermline again on a permanent basis. Ridvan is unlikely to see this season out. Even if he doesn't leave this summer, I think there's a strong likelihood he will leave in January or even next summer, but certainly doesn't seem to be part of the club's plans going forward. So we are exceptionally short in that left back area. I know Max Aarons can play there. James Tavernier kind of tried playing there the other day and was tough. But at the end of the day, it does kind of give a little bit of a an issue there with where we go from here, because we've obviously signed 3 left backs, or signed 2 and had 1 come through the academy. We now have, realistically, with Ridvan likely to go, no left backs that we actually own. Meghoma, like I said, he's on loan from Brentford. He is unlikely to sign. It is very much seen as an experience thing for him, not a permanent thing for him, and certainly something we need to address going forward. And it may be that there is further business to do there. It may be that we wait till January or even next summer to strengthen that area. But it is an area we will need to address to secure someone who actually belongs to the club. And I think that is one of the big issues with using loan players. At the moment we have a back four where 3/4 of our back four that started the other night we don't own, and we will not own come the start of next season. Max Aarons obviously unlikely to stay, and I think a lot of fans will say thank God for that. Nasajiga also unlikely to obviously remain. I wouldn't pay £10 million for him. I wouldn't even pay 10 quid for him at the moment. And obviously Jayden Meghoma as well. So look, I think the back four is a concern. Especially obviously given the fact that you're meant to build from the back, and you're meant to build a solid kind of foundation on which you develop your club and move your club forward. Everyone talks, don't they, about the spine of the team and the base of the team being key. And you go back to the great Rangers teams of the past, with the likes of Terry Butcher and David McPherson and Davy Robertson and Lorenzo Amoruso and Newman and Rickson and Richard Goff. Just fantastic back fours, fantastic defensive shapes. But something we do need to address. And I think for me, it is concerning that we are going into a season and we often have a situation where 3/4 of our back four we do not own and will not own come the start of next season. We have a right back captain who is 3 seasons past his sell-by date and shouldn't even be at the club still. We have a left back who wants away from the club in Ridvan, and we have Manny Fernandez, and that is pretty much it. So I still feel that back area is an area that the club have failed spectacularly on to actually sort it out properly. For me, it is a massive failure there. I'm not saying that eventually these players won't come good. They might well come good this season, but long term, what do we do? How does this work long term for Rangers? It is a question that needs to be raised and needs to be answered by Kevin Thelwell and Dan Purdy and obviously Patrick Stewart as well. So, look, it's something we need to look at, isn't it, going forward, and something we need to badly sort out in the long run. Right, let's move it along a little bit. Talking about transfer business, Barry Ferguson has kind of called out Rangers transfer business to some degree in what he was saying on Go Radio the other day. Now, obviously, Barry Ferguson, who had a spell as Rangers boss, which finished with a 40% win ratio, which has, I think, divided the fan base very much. You've got those fans who think he should have been given the job and are very much of the attitude that, well, look, he did what he did with what crap we had. And I think, the players that we've kind of hung on to from that era kind of show that they are complete and utter crap, and Ferguson did reasonably well to get a tune out of them of some degree. There are others, obviously, that say that Ferguson was never really in for the job, shouldn't have been given the job, and it's certainly his past experience, the likes of the clubs he previously managed, show that he was not fit to manage Rangers. Like I said, it is a debate, and look, I'm not going to get into the should he or shouldn't he have been given the job discussion. And look, my opinion on it, whether he should have been given the job. I don't think he's up to the job. And as I said on the video yesterday, I think there's a number of candidates who would have been better placed than both Ferguson and Russell Martin, who, in my opinion, is absolutely hopeless. I mean, I'd honestly say here and now on this video that Barry Ferguson is a better manager than Russell Martin. I mean, Russell Martin is genuinely useless. I mean, the guy is about as much use as a pork pie at a Jewish wedding, or he's about as much use as windscreen wipers on a submarine. But, look, we look at it now, and Barry Ferguson talked about transfer business. And one of the things that was outlined in one of the comments that was actually made on one of my videos recently was, you look at that starting lineup that started on Tuesday night against Club Brugge. There was only one Scot in the lineup. Yes, I know Lyle Cameron came on at a later time, but even if you look at the squad as a whole, it's sadly lacking in Scottish players. And as I previously mentioned on another video, I talked about the fact that you go back to Walter Smith's time, and when Walter had success, his teams had and his squads had large numbers of Scottish players who got the heritage, got the spirit, got what it was to be a Rangers man, got what it was to play for the club, and understood the league and understood the way that fans work, understood the way that the whole system works in Scotland. I think that is key. I mean, if you go through the squad now, there is John Souttar, Connor Barron, Lyle Cameron, 3. There is, who else have we got? Liam Kelly, Kieran Wright, Leon King, Bailey Rice, Finlay Curtis. There are only 8 players in the squad who are Scottish. And of those 8, you've only realistically got a limited number that actually play on a regular basis. I mean, you could say Souttar, you can say Barron gets on regularly. You can say that, well, who else realistically from that list? Souttar, Barron, Kelly gets the odd game, but certainly not Kieran Wright, no. Leon King, no. Finlay Curtis, I suppose, has had a number of games recently, but sort of 3 from the 8 that actually allow Cameron 4. So 50% of those Scots actually get a game on a reasonably regular basis, or get some game time. So it is, for me, quite worrying, the lack of Scottish talent within this Rangers squad, and I think it is something that leads to the team perhaps not competing in the way that it should, or understanding how it needs to compete in this league. Barry Ferguson said that he would have signed 2 Scottish players for definite. Josh Mulligan from Dundee and Lawrence Shankland from Hearts. Now, I know at the time that Josh Mulligan was rumoured to be having a medical at Rangers. It was a move that was widely welcomed by Rangers fans. And I think Josh Mulligan will go on to be a player that we miss out on. I think, long term, you look at Josh Mulligan and you look at how he is currently performing for Hibs. Realistically, this is a player who I don't think, long term is going to be in the Scottish League. I think he is a player who will go on to play elsewhere. Will go on to have success elsewhere in a bigger league than the SPL. So, I don't think this is a player for a minute who's going to be a player who has time at Hibs and then obviously signs for Rangers. Josh Mulligan for me should have been someone who we bought. Definitely should have been somebody who we looked at. For absolute definite on that one. I do feel this is a player we have clearly missed out on. A player who is absolutely super talented. He's made 2 appearances for Hibs so far. He signed a 4-year contract there. He played in the Europa League game against Midtjylland. He is a talent. He is a very good player. He can play right back. He can play right wing. He can play in midfield. He's a good footballer, and he's certainly someone we should have looked at. And I don't. What really gets to me, and why I really kind of agree with Barry on this one, is we signed Max Aarons. I mean, Max Aarons. Who would you rather have had, Josh Mulligan or Max Aarons? For me, Josh Mulligan comes in, starts and plays and shows himself to be a long-term replacement for James Tavernier. So for me, it's a no-brainer. So I agree with Barry on that one. And the other one, obviously, Lawrence Shankland. Obviously, Shankland kind of went through a spell where he was about to leave Hearts. He was going to leave Hearts. There was talk of him going to West Brom at one point. But it never materialised, and he ends up signing a new contract to stay at Hearts, probably for the rest of his career now. And again, it's one we missed out on. I honestly believe that Lawrence Shankland would have added to this Rangers team. He's a Rangers man. He's got a good goal-scoring record in Scotland. He would have kind of been, for me, a kind of Chris Boyd-esque signing. I think someone who could have found the goals in Scotland very easy to come by. Perhaps not as good in Europe, a la Boydie, but I think could have played a substantial role for Rangers going forward. So again, someone I wholeheartedly agree on. I mean, Shankland is, and I know there'll be people who argue with me on this one, but Shankland is twice the player that Cyril Dessers is. His goal numbers are better. The 2 seasons that he was top scorer were far better than Dessers' pathetic 18 goals last season. He's a better all-round player. He's a quality player, an intelligent player, someone who can not only play as a 9, but can play as a 10. And I've got to say, I agree with Barry. I would have signed those 2 for definite in Josh Mulligan and Lawrence Shankland. I think Rangers, you've got to really question Kevin Thelwell and Dan Purdy why they didn't move for those players. Josh Mulligan, was because he was a Niels Coppen target, and they kind of threw away Coppen saying, well, we don't want anything to do with what he said, did we? Which often happens when a new regime comes in. But, for me, I would have signed both of them. And I think Barry's right. I think Barry is spot on with what he says. And I think bringing in 2 Scottish players to add into this squad, 2 Scottish players who probably would have started from day one, for me, shows where there is a complete flaw in the transfer policy at this moment in time. I mean, Kevin Thelwell was at Everton, hardly had a lot of success there, did he? Let's face it. I mean, let's face it, Everton have been a joke down in the English Premier League for a number of seasons now, and I certainly hope they go on to get relegated this season in that ridiculous stadium of theirs. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on the topics we've covered in this video. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.